I was going through my files on my computer and I found this picture randomly. I'm not even sure who sent it to me or how I came across it. I'm not sure if I just, saw it and grabbed it and stuffed it in a file absentmindedly or what, but here it is. I'll put it on screen for you. Let me take a look. Wow. We'll talk about the guy on the far right if we have time. On the left is yours truly. And in the middle, Rick Flotting, my composition teacher. And sadly, he has passed away. It's been a few years now, but it's been Christmas time. I hope you've been having an awesome Christmas time. I hope your holidays have been good, whether you're celebrating with all the fam or whether you're going solo this year, getting some rest, hopefully. But this picture was around Christmas time as well. And I guess it must have been, it was probably around 2011, maybe 2010, maybe 2012. I mean, probably somewhere in there. I'd have to go check. But it just brought back the memories. Oh, this tea I wish I could share with you. I still have a little tea from my China trip. I almost kind of want to save it to enjoy it and make it last. But then today's tea is Genmaicha. Genmaicha all the time, for life, every day, till I die. I need to get some tattoos. Genmaicha, right? But anyway, seeing the picture of Professor Flotting, as I used to call him, but after a certain point, he just insisted on Rick. I've had one or two. Excuse me. I've had one or two teachers do that, like, you graduate or whatever, and like, oh, we're equals now. Just call me by my first name. But depending on the position, the age, it almost feels wrong, right? Especially when you're young. But anyways, the memories just came flooding back. I remember when we were first starting off. So basically, this was undergrad, and I could almost do a whole video about that. There were so many, I guess, stories and crazy and weird experiences. But when I was first starting off, I guess this would have been my first semester even, we were trying to find a room to reserve to have composition lessons, music composition lessons, private one-on-one with Professor Flotting. And we couldn't find a room. For some reason, it was just difficult. And he was trying stuff on his end, like talking with offices. I was trying stuff on my end, like going by the offices. And it was some kind of busy beginning of the year thing and like some sort of lengthy bureaucratic process. I can't recall why we were having trouble finding a room. And we did eventually, like a few weeks into the school semester we did. But it got to the point where I was just like, do you want to just come by my place? Because I lived really close to the campus. And he was like, all right, but there better be breakfast. Because it was at 8 o'clock. It was an 8 a.m. class. And I don't know. Everyone always complained about the 8 a.m. classes, but I didn't mind. I do. I don't know what the word is for those kinds of different body types of personalities where it's like you have more energy in the morning or more energy late at night, depending on what. I was fine with mornings and afternoons. It seems like, the further the day goes, the more tired I get. So I'll make a good old man one day. But anyways, I made him breakfast. And thankfully, people are generally happy when I cook. So I take that as a sign. I guess if they weren't, I wouldn't cook. Or I guess if they weren't, I would I guess I'd have to like break open some cookbooks or something. But I made him breakfast, and I remember him coming over, and he couldn't have the grapefruit. And I was young. I was 18, and I think that was the first time I ran into someone who had those kind of like dietary restrictions. I don't know if it was acid reflux or whatever, but you know, he said he couldn't eat it, but he ate everything else. And we were talking about music, and he was just such a great guy. I miss him. I and my naivete, because we all start out as a little Timmy, right? You know, we just, maybe we're energetic, we're optimistic, but we're not yet educated, we're not yet informed. I was a little Timmy in the music world, and you know, I would say something like incredibly basic, or I would ask a basic question, but he, you know, instead of slamming me with what I didn't know, I mean, he would teach me things I didn't know or introduce them to me, but you know, instead of poo-pooing my sense of taste at the time or whatever, he would get excited with me. You know, I'd say something incredibly basic like, you know, I'd reference Barber's Adagio for, you know, something like that, and you know, I'd be like, oh, have you heard that? He'd be like, oh yeah, are you kidding me? And he'd start talking about, if he was incredibly versatile, he was a guitarist. In fact, he used to be a studio guitarist. He would, if you don't know, you know, there would be these studios, and they would just play whatever you brought in to record. So he was really good at guitar, and he could do all sorts of different styles. But he always seemed to be able to appreciate whatever the style was for what it was and for what it could do. You know, if you brought up Bach, or you brought up, you know, something completely on the opposite end, you know, some sort of random Chilean style, or some sort of, you know, really modern piece or whatever, he would nod, and he would say, yeah, this composer's really good at that, or, you know, this band is, you know, the mood they create. I mean, and what he said would ring true, you know, because he had given lots of thought to that, being a composer and all the different styles he'd worked with and done. As it's so funny, because the realest people I've met, you know, they're not often singing their own praises. You know, my grandfather, who had all these crazy experiences in World War II, you know, as a combat vet or whatever, in Korea, in Vietnam, he never talked about that stuff. I just went on a trip, I'm thinking about my tea, I just went on a trip to China with Will. I had to like drag it out. Will was obsessed about like finding the next person to interview. He was obsessed about finding, you know, a piece of information from this county or whatever. I basically had to drag it out of him that he'd been certified at the highest level that the Chinese government could give you when it came to like proficiency in the language. You know, because he was referencing this test. I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, yeah, I had to take this test. I was like, what? And, you know, basically the Chinese government will certify you, give you ranks depending on your level of proficiency, which helps if you're trying to get jobs in journalism or translating or whatever. Will got the highest one. And it sounded like a nightmare, because he's like, yeah, I was all mad. There was this one character for, you know, because I had to translate this news story, and it was about a guy who got injured, and he had broken a particular bone in like his leg, or there was just one character for this bone that I was, you know, trying to recall. I was like, that sounds like a nightmare, you know, all that information. But, you know, Rick, I found out about all the stuff he did after he died, basically. I mean, he would loosely reference, you know, things he had done or whatever, but just kind of as an educational opportunity and as the situation called for it. He wasn't endlessly talking about his own style or whatever. And his style was, it's so funny because you could really tell we were from different times. You know, thankfully, he was kind to me, and he respected me, and he tried to nurture, you know, what I was into. But then I tried to be respectful of him, even though I would listen to something he would do, and I would think, oh wow, well, I would take it in a completely opposite direction. But you can't, it's easy to dismiss style. It's really hard to deny skill. when you see the talent, you don't have to like a certain style of music or a certain player's style to acknowledge, oh my gosh, yeah, that's really hard work, or that's a genius idea for what they did within the system or whatever. And he was really talented. He would play, and he could play in a jazz combo setting, or he could play, beautiful classical style guitar. He really knew his craft really well. In fact, this one's for all the martial arts fans who follow me. Not fans of me, but fans of martial arts who appreciate that stuff. He said someone would be complaining in class about theory, because every once in a while we'd have like group meetups or whatever. But they'd be complaining about music theory, or why do I have to? Why do I have to learn this? And he would get his head would tilt, and he would get this big grin across his face. I can't do it. I think if I did it, it would look just stupid or silly. But when he did it, it looked genuine, and full of warmth. And he would just wait. He would just sit and wait while the other person was done complaining. And then when they get done complaining, he'd say, yeah, that's right. He would say, your hands can't do what your head doesn't know. And of course, he was right. Obviously, in music theory, if you learn that like a certain scale or mode goes over a certain chord or chord progressions or whatever, then you can solo and plug it in. And it was funny because, I think about that and I'd be like, it's true it's true in music, but it's like, it's true in martial arts too. You learn something to play with, like an actual technique or something in your, strategy in your head, and then you can apply it. But yeah, he'd say that. It's true in other things too. Card flourishing, history, all that stuff. Like, methods of writing, blah, 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 blah. And it's funny how many intersections there are when you start, I guess, hopping from different thing to different thing. But yeah, that was an old saying of his. Your hands can't do what your head doesn't know. Oh, someone's at the door. Let me go check. Sorry about that. Hopefully that's in focus. Sorry about that. I had a knock at the door. But the tea's still hot, don't worry. But yeah, what a good guy. Patient, kind, able to explain what he knew, able to actually do what he was professing to know. And we would crack jokes. And you could see, I always thought, is it a Venn diagram when the circles, I could be wrong. I'll have to brush up on my PowerPoint. But the diagram where the circles intersect? I always thought of older people like their life is this circle, and then I get to experience a little bit, like the circles just barely intersect, and then, the rest of my life is without them. So I could see, traces of who he must have been as a young person in the 60s, the 70s. Well, he was probably really young in the 60s, but I mentioned all the understanding. I guess he must have found the patience and everything. I guess he must have found his zen, because he told me one time that when he was young, he would, he'd get in the car, and like if his friends had pop music playing or whatever, he'd be like, stop the car, and he would get out, he'd be like, oh, it's horrible. Like, I can't even stand to listen to it, I guess, like that's not serious music. But it was funny. We'd crack jokes, and, I don't know, just a funny person to joke around with. And I forgot. I say forgot. I guess it was there, but I hadn't thought about it in a long time. But he helped me with my internship too, because that was part of the school. I'm telling you, I could make a whole video about that experience. But anyways, finishing up the undergrad, I I had to do an internship. And that year was a nightmare. There was like, there's always so much to do with adult life, like, school and logistics and work and everything. And one of my requirements was 2 semesters, basically a year of interning. And thankfully, because I was like trying to find that, probably stressed out of my mind, excuse me. And he helped me. He was like, well, look, a church had hired him to do their music, like write for their, arrange. Basically, if a song comes out and they have a orchestra, you have to write individual sheets of music for each member of the orchestra so that orchestra can then play the song. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to explain this with as many like non-music terms as I can. I mean, maybe you're watching this and you know more about music than I do. Well, I'm not trying to patronize. I just, basically it's funny because so much goes into 30 minutes of performance. So anyways, that's what Rick was doing. He's like, hey, come help me out at this church. And I actually couldn't believe it because I was like literally, I was up there conducting the choir. I was like, I can't believe I'm using what I learned in freaking conducting class, with my baton. Actually, I don't think I use a baton for that. I mean, there were different settings. It just depended on. But anyways, he helped me get that, so that was really nice of him. And I'm really, really glad that I have the memory of thanking him for teaching me. I mean, that's something I would recommend to you highly. Thank the people in your life who you appreciate. And, whenever someone passes away, you'll see people outpouring on the Facebook post or whatever, oh, he was so great. Well, I'm pretty sure he is not looking down at your Facebook post, right? I mean, why not thank him while he's still alive, like whoever you lost? I'm pretty sure you won't regret that. I'm pretty sure that if you live your life thanking the people you appreciate, it'll be time well spent. And I was going to say thank your teachers while they're still alive. But I guess it can be anyone, right? Don't use that as an excuse to go like drop a bomb on someone and confess your love for them, even though you've never met them or something. I just mean like, it can be appropriate to whatever the situation is. If it's a coworker, just say, hey, thanks this year. Thanks for having my back. Thanks for helping me out with the shifts. If it's someone, more like a teacher or a mentor or a family member or a close friend, tell them thank you. Tell them you appreciate them. And I love that I have the memory of thanking Rick for teaching me, telling him thanks, I appreciate it. It's just a good feeling. I mean, it was good to thank him. It's good to show him my appreciation. It's good for me. It feels good because I acknowledged his help. And it's funny because, all these memories are flooding back. Mike Martello is a name that maybe 1 or 2 out of 10 of my viewers will know, actually. Mike Martello was a guy who went around China and did praying mantis. And actually, it was a different style than mine, but still, there's a lot of similarities in the different styles of mantis usually. But I didn't know him that well, so I'm not trying to name drop or anything, but the reason why he pops up in my memory is because he came by our school in Fort Worth, Texas. And one thing that I always admired about my teacher was if someone else came in with a different experience or a different style, whatever, my teacher would basically get out of the way and he would say, look, this is your time to soak up whatever you can from this guy who has this totally different experience or training in a different art or skill set than I. And he would get out of the way and he'd be quiet and he'd just let the guy, show us things, or we could talk to him or ask questions or whatever. And Mike was just in town for that really brief period. And I remember after a class going up with my brother, and this was when I was a teenager, you know. It's hard sometimes when you're a teen and you don't even know hardly how the world works. And, you know, all the adults are, you know, well, of course they have everything figured out, right? But you know what? I went up there with my brother, who was in the picture I showed you at the beginning. Because my brother did Manchester with me for a long time. And I went up with my brother, and we both told Mike, thank you. Thanks for coming by. Thanks for teaching us. We really enjoyed it. We appreciate it. Boom. Guess what? Mike Martello passed away when he was literally, I think, I would have to look this up, and maybe someone can mention in the comments below. For my sake, you might have to Google it. I think he was 42. I could be wrong. Maybe he was older. I don't think he escaped his 40s. I think he was in his 40s when he died. Man, that's rough. I think he was literally, he was practicing, he was teaching Kung Fu, and he just collapsed randomly. And you know, we always think that we're going to get 80 years, right? We think, oh, well, I'm going to do this for my career, you know, for my school, and this for my career, and then I'd like to, later on, I'd like to do this, and I'll probably retire here, and I could see myself. But guess what? Maybe you only get 42, like Mike. I'm really, really glad that I went up and thanked him. You know, I don't know that much about him. I don't know. I'm sure there are tons of people who could chime in who actually maybe like were his students or spent more time with him or whatever. But the point is, he came by, he spent his time teaching. I said thank you. It's a good memory. It's a good thing to do. I could go on and on. I'm thinking of all the people. You know, warm memories, but still, it's sad. I mean, Mrs. Nagano, one of my other teachers, she passed away. But I have a vivid memory of, you know, a lot of these teachers. I would say thank you for teaching me, but then maybe during Christmas I'd give them something small. I guarantee you something small, because I didn't, you know, I didn't have any money back then. I would just make them a card, or I'd buy them a little knick-knack and just say, hey, thank you, you know. And I think like I said, it's a good thing, and I really doubt you will regret thanking the people you appreciate. I don't think you're going to be on your deathbed going, oh man, if only I hadn't said thank you to this person who helped me out, or this. Yeah, so I was going to say thank your teachers while they're still alive, but maybe I should say you know, thank the people you appreciate while they're still alive, for anything, for any reason, you know. Everything will come to an end, right? I've had that thought process. I don't know if it's my personality, if it's the history training, but I'll imagine the end of things. I had a teapot, a beautiful glazed, perfectly round, small blue teapot made in Japan. It's almost like a perfect sphere or globe. I had that thing for over 10 years. Over 10 years, I was drinking out of Old Blue. Cheers to Big Red for taking over. But I would appreciate that thing, and it was given to me by someone I like, someone in my family who I care about. And but I would think about it breaking. Yeah, you know? And then one day it did. Boom, got knocked right off the counter and it broke. But I'd already seen it in my mind. Ooh. Hey, I gotta be real with you guys. That's how I think. I'm not trying to sound super spiritual. I'm not trying to sound like I know everything, because I don't. But you can do that too. You can entertain an item, a process, a person. You can go, you know what? This isn't going to be around in my life forever. Either I'm going to move on from this job, or I'm going to lose this item one day, or I'm going to pass away, whatever it is. And it makes you appreciate the thing for what it is. with an item, I'm not necessarily saying thank you to the item, but I'm at least appreciating it, being mindful. Same thing with my brother in the picture. Incredible, incredible jazz pianist. And I'll tell you something about him at the end to kind of end on a happy note. But he had this gig at this restaurant, and it was nice, warm lighting, and you would go and you'd listen to him play. And such a good player. It was a real joy to show up and eat the food. I mean, support my brother by listening to his playing. But I would think about, I'd like, you know what, in my mind, he's not going to always have this gig. So enjoy it, soak it in. And I would I would look at the environment, I would listen to the sounds, I would just take it all in. In fact, that's something else Will said on the trip. I've got the China trip on mine because I'm trying to go through all this footage. I still have some more masters to highlight that we got to see and interview. Still more to come on that. But Will was like, you're quiet or you take things in a lot. And I was basically like, look, my own thoughts. I mean, if they're super relevant or necessary, I can share them with you now. But I'll be with my own thoughts when I get back to Texas. For now in China, I just want to listen as much as I can, learn as much as I can, soak it all up. I mean, I wasn't just mute. I would ask prompting questions. I would politely respond. But I want to just listen and learn, right? And that's what I did for the gig my brother had, which it ended up, he had that gig for over 10 years. I can't remember how long exactly. And then finally one night we were there on the last night, the place was closing down with the owner, saying our goodbyes. And it was cool. And because I took the time to stop and appreciate it and be in the moment, I have the memory firmly locked in my mind and I can revisit it at any time. During the COVID shutdowns, that was one thing I could do. I could just sit with my morning coffee or whatever, and I could imagine that I was in the cafe we'd gone to or whatever, because I could see every aspect of it. Like, the light coming through the windows, the tile on the floor, the counter, the plants hanging up, the sound of the cashier, the person helping the other person get their pastry or whatever. Like, I could see it in my mind's eye. Now, there towards the end, I was ready to get out. I told someone, I was like, it's bad if the lockdowns are long if the even the introvert wants to get back to visiting a few places, but it was there. A thing of beauty is a joy forever. It really is true. You can call it that blue teapot. I can call it back up at any moment in my mind, and it's there. Which I don't just spend 10 hours a day thinking about stuff that's not my life anymore, right? But at the same time, it's just, remember that? Oh yeah, I do remember it. It was nice. It was beautiful. Remember that person? It was awesome. Oh yeah. Dude, I used to, the wonderful, the best dog in the world, Freya P. Puppers. The P stands for poultry because she chased down chickens. I change what the P stands for every time. It's the running gag. The P stands for protector. Whatever. Beautiful, beautiful big white Pyrenees. And she's been passed away for a year now. She's been gone for about a year, something like that. And all these wonderful years of walks and scratching her head and everything. This might sound weird to you, but again, this is how I think. I would think in my mind that maybe I was 70 or 80 years old thinking wow, I remember Freya, that was such a good dog. Because she was. She never bit anyone. She never jumped up. She took the whole protecting the house really seriously. Great Pyrenees. That's the kind of their deal. They're like protectors or whatever. Polite dog, friendly, everything you could ever want in a dog, right? I mean, come on. So I'd imagine wow, I'm 70 or 80, remembering how long it's been since I last saw that dog and how good that dog was. Well, guess what? Now I get to be teleported back to my 30s, and boom, the dog's right there in the living room. I'd run out and be like, Freya! And I'd scratch her head and she'd get all excited. I'd spend some time with her, go on a walk, give her a treat or whatever. I'm not super into like dogs as far as like a dog person or dog culture, whatever. I don't have like, some people kind of take it in a pretty interesting far direction, right? But you should appreciate the animals under your care and treat them nicely, right? And I thought that was a good thing to do. I'll think of everyone, not just dogs, most of the people. It's like, hey, one day this person will be around. Maybe they'll move away, like your friend or something. Maybe they'll move away. They get a different job, family member, and that just makes you more appreciative. You know, you can go and you can hang with someone and you can pretend it's your last time. Don't do it as in like you're sobbing and you're like, oh my God, man. You know, hang out normally with them. But just ask yourself right before, boy, what if this is the last time I get to hang out with them? And then you go and you soak it in, and your senses are like heightened. I swear, you pick up their mannerisms that they have. You listen to the pitch of their voice, the sound of their laugh. You crack jokes, and you just love it because you're aware of what a treasure it is, what a gift. We're not guaranteed, that person will be in our life forever. And again, like I said, you don't have to make it a big dramatic thing. It's just a lens you put on your mind, and you just savor that experience. You heighten the awareness. And, I think I just gave you, like, those three things I just gave you, a teapot, inanimate object, a gig, so more of an event, my brother playing at that restaurant. So we got inanimate object, event, and then person, people you appreciate, or your dog. It's just a useful tool. I think if you're doing it, I don't necessarily consciously do it a lot. And I think if you're doing it all the time, it might be the wrong mind frame. It's just one tool in your toolbox. But it's very useful for appreciating things. It's just good. And I'm glad I did it with Rick Flooding, my old professor. I'm glad I did it with the items in my life, with the people in my life, with the events, the places in my life. It's the awareness and the observation and the thinking about where things came from, what they are right now in the moment, and where they might potentially be out of your life. I think it just heightens your appreciation. And then I think it makes you a better person because it informs your decision-making process. Again, I'm not a guru. I'm not perfect. I'm not trying to sound super spiritual or anything. It's just something that I've picked up along the way, and I think it's a beneficial way of living. It's something that has kind of crept into my lifestyle, I guess you could say. It's a way of life. And a way of life leads to a small measure of peace. I said we'd end on a happy note, and remember the picture from the beginning. Christmas time, guy on the right, my brother Simon. He's in the. I kind of forgot about this too. I didn't forget, but I hadn't thought about it in a long time. He's in the background of the street beef fights that I put up on YouTube, the compilation, and you can see him like a background character in Street Fighter or whatever. He's like perched up on the fence yelling stuff. And sometimes he said he was yelling stuff just so that the other corner couldn't, like they would start yelling something, so he would just start yelling stuff too so that the comms would get scrambled. I hate to talk about that too. What a crazy event. But anyways, Simon had lessons with Rick as well. Man, I missed that guy. But good news, Rick's influence lives on. Rick taught Simon music composition. Simon, during COVID, used the opportunity to record a Christmas album, the arrangements of which I'm sure were influenced by things he picked up from Rick. So go on Spotify or wherever. I don't know if it's on YouTube or what, but just you can Google it. Simon Petty, Petty, Simon Petty, New Traditions, the official jazz album of Ravenswood, the official jazz Christmas album. Remember, Christmas doesn't end until like the 5th or the 6th or whatever when the wise men show up, so why not? Listen to some beautiful, awesome Christmas jazz music. And Simon did such a good job putting the album together. And it's good. It's good music, and it was part of my Christmas rotation playlist as I was kind of moving through the holidays. But yeah, enjoy that. Enjoy listening. Was there something else? Some kind of final parting joke about Rick or Simon? I can't remember. I think that's it. Yeah, enjoy listening to that. Simon Petty, New Traditions. And thank the people in your life. Tell them thank you. Tell them what you appreciate about them. Thank your teachers. And thank your friends, family. And think about the things in your life. We don't get forever. So, not to be morbid, but I think it makes life even more rich and beautiful to acknowledge the temporal nature. And why not celebrate life with some Christmas jazz? So go forth and listen. I hope you're having as good a Christmas and New Year's as I am. Happy New Year. And lots of wonderful things planned for the event, or for the new year. I've got them all racing through my mind. Projects I want to do. Each with kind of their own flavor, their own nature. So here's to looking forward to a good new year. Cheers to Rick. Here's to all the good people in our life, whether they're teachers, whether they're family members, friends, the people who are patient with us, who help us, who inform us along the way. It's a good thing. And, you know what? I'll put one of Rick's songs at the end of this video. He was such a not a perfectionist, because he didn't get caught up. He didn't get caught up in like, well, if it's not perfect, then we can't do it. I think people imagine music teachers as, well, I don't know what they imagine, but he had this kind of people who know him will remember, like, but he had this kind of mannerism where he would tilt his head and kind of close his eyes even as he was talking to you, like, you would mention a piece, or you would, if you heard him play in one of like the jazz combos, or if you heard if he was playing a piece of his just for an example, which, because he rarely played his own music, you would compliment it, or you would just mention something about it, and he would just kind of, maybe some pizzicato there would have been better on the strings. Like, there was always something he could have revised or have done better in true composer fashion. Because even some of the classical composers, they would go back and they would add a clarinet part, or they would make changes. But so me playing you only one piece from the 2000s. There's this 2000 album he did, and it's like called like Peaceful Escape or something. You can really hear all the influences of his era and his time, but it's criminal for me to just play one song of his when he had this whole huge career, and this whole, it doesn't begin to convey like his understanding and his range of technique, which was impressive, and his artistry. But why not? Let's remember Rick, and here's to all the people in our lives that we are benefiting from because they guide us, or they are kind with us, or patient with us, and may we appreciate them and give them thanks. So Happy New Year, and I'll see you in the next new year. Cheers. Here's to Rick.